Welcome to Medill Sports Talk, where we discuss all things related to sports. I'm Ben Friedl, and I'm joined today by Fernando Shan and John Alfes for the first ever edition of Game Set Match. Today, we will recap yet another exciting Australian Open tournament. Last Sunday, Novak Djokovic defeated Rafael Nadal by a score of 3-0, securing his 7th career Australian Open title. Fernando, what stood out to you during the match?
So firstly, congrats to Novak Djokovic on his achievements in Australian Open. But when everyone is highly praising the champion, I still want to pay a tribute to the runner-up Rafael Nadal. Don't forget, this Australian Open was Nadal's first tournament since last year's US Open semifinal. He hadn't played any official tennis match for 4 months. Injury had played a huge part in preventing Nadal being best prepared entering the event. But look at his performance here. He didn't drop any set on his path to the final. I think Nadal is still the best candidate on the earth to stop Novak Djokovic.
What about you, John? What did you think?
Well, it might be foggy behind me, Ben, but it's clear that Novak Djokovic was the #1 seed in this tournament. He breezed his way to the final, only dropped 1 set, and he takes on a guy in Rafael Nadal who swept his way to the final, and he swept him in that final. Novak Djokovic was vintage Novak Djokovic, and I think now the discussion starts. Is he the greatest player of all time? He's certainly playing like it, and he played like that in this Australian Open match. Nadal was playing well. Novak Djokovic stopped him.
Now for the women's side, Naomi Osaka won her first ever Australian Open title, securing the Japanese native and becoming the new world #1. John, this match was very highly contested. What stood out to you?
Yeah, Osaka went through some trouble. In the second set, she lost so many points in a row, struggling to keep her composure, losing her cool, throwing her hat at one point. Taking that break after that second set, went to a decisive third set, and she reeled it back in, gained her composure, put it all together, and played like she played at last year's US Open. Now Osaka took down the match. It's her 2nd straight Grand Slam title, and that's really puts her in rare company. You look at her game, she's not afraid to make mistakes, not afraid to make unforced errors, but she has a legit serve, plays like Serena. She looks like the future of women's tennis.
What about you, Fernando? What did you think of the match?
So the finalist, the 2-time Wimbledon champion, Patrick Kvitova, surprised me a lot. Even though she lost to Osaka in the 3-set final, I think she still should be treated as a champion in my perspective. 2 years ago, she suffered a devastating knife attack at home in Czech Republic. Nobody believed she could pick up the tennis racket again, but Petra's tenacity, belief, and championship spirit bring her back on the stage of Grand Slam final. And her experience is one of the most inspiring stories in sports.
We saw a lot of older players relinquish their grasp on professional tennis to some new, young, rising stars. Fernando, which young players stood out to you from the past couple weeks?
The 2019 Australian Open might be a landmark for tennis world. The next generation's breakthrough impressed me a lot. On the men's side, the 21-year-old American kid Frances Tiafoe made his first quarterfinal debut in Grand Slam. His fearlessness and versatility helped him knock out the #5 seeded South African Kevin Anderson in the second round. Another incredible young man, the 20-year-old Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas. He upset the legend Roger Federer in the 4th round. He went through the semifinal in the tournament. And after down by a set to Federer, his one-handed single backhand stunned everyone, including his opponent Federer. And the young Greek first time defeated his idol in Grand Slam stage. And besides these male players, the younger girls made their maiden Grand Slam main draw victory here in Melbourne. The 18-year-old American kid Amanda Anisimova, 17-year-old Russian Anastasia Potapova, and 18-year-old Ukrainian Diana Yastremska. All of them were shining in Melbourne. They cracked the top 100 at the end of last year. Their ranking guaranteed them directly qualify for the main draw in this year's Australian Open. And so, including the reigning Australian Open champion, Naomi Osaka, who was born in 1997. The rising stars are ready to take over the big stage.
John, it seems like a lot of older players are still getting it done as well. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, you look at the men's and you look at the women's, you look at Djokovic, Nadal, and Serena Williams. And when it got to the big stage, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, they were all there. So it's certainly exciting, and there's an intriguing element with all these young players kind of rising through the ranks. But when it got to those, that quarterfinal round, Tiafoe lost. When it got to the semifinal round, Tsitsipas lost. And it got to the final, and it was Djokovic and Nadal. On the women's side, it's still Serena. Had it not been for that injury early in the third set, Serena probably would have won that match. She had a 5-1 lead in the third set, and she still, aside from some mobility issues, looks to be just as powerful as she was when she first entered the professional ranks. So I think you look at these top players between the men and women, and it's certainly exciting with these younger players coming in, but when it comes to the big matches, it's still the men and the Djokovic's, the Nadals, and the Serenas that are in those matches.
Another name to dominate the headlines down in Australia was Andy Murray, who heavily alluded to retiring sometime soon. John, if the rumors are true, what do you think of Andy Murray's legacy?
Andy Murray will go down as a staple in the tennis world. I mean, this is one of the most athletic players, and that might be why he has to retire so soon, because he's just so athletic. His mobility is so well. His forehand, so consistent, always getting it back. He can shoot it, he can angle it to either side of the court. Andy Murray, really, you look at his 3 Grand Slam titles. You look at what he did at Wimbledon in front of his home crowd. He won 3 Grand Slams. He very much solidified himself as one of the better men's tennis players in the world, albeit his career is cutting off short, but certainly remarkable what he did on the court.
Fernando, Andy Murray's on-court achievements certainly were very impressive. What do you think about what he accomplished off the court?
Yeah, John has mentioned a lot about Murray's on-court achievements. So what I want to say here is about his off-court success. I mean, Andy Murray outspoke for women on gender equality and equal prize money for a long time. He said tennis women made same sacrifices as men. And Murray was the first top male player hiring a female coach in his career. He worked with former number 1 2-time Grand Slam champion Emily Murray-Small before, and he supported for women for a long time. So I mean, Murray's legacy is not just on the court.
Most definitely. And well, it seems like we've used all of our challenges in today's match. So that means it's time for us to retire. Coming up next on Medill Sports Talk, Louis Ricard and Andre Turan are back with another segment of On the Block. We will be right back.